Today, we're going to unpack a story, a really powerful one that might just change the way you look at every single setback you've ever faced. It's all about finding the signal in the smoke.
All right, so let's get right into it. You know that feeling on January 1st, that big surge of hope? You think, okay, this is the year. Everything is going to be perfect. I'm going to crush all my goals. But what happens when your new year fails on day one? What if all that careful planning just, poof, falls apart before you even get started?
Well, there's this really powerful idea that says, man makes his own plans, but a higher power makes a better plan. Basically, even when our plans completely fall apart, maybe there's a bigger design at play. In the story we're exploring today, it illustrates this perfectly. It shows how what looks like a total disaster can actually be hiding a purpose you'd never, ever expect. So, to really get this, let's dive into the story of the ultimate failed plan. I mean, just imagine it. A complete and total shipwreck. Everything you hoped for, your entire future, just gone in an instant.
So, there's this massive ship, right? It gets caught in a terrible storm, and it goes down. Everyone on board is lost, except for one guy. Somehow, he survives and washes up on this totally deserted island. I mean, there's nobody, nothing, just empty space as far as he can see. And after that initial shock and, just complete despair, something amazing happens. That instinct, that will to survive, it just kicks in. He stops waiting for someone to rescue him and starts taking action, trying to build a new life for himself against, well, impossible odds.
And you can really see his journey here. On day one, he's just praying for rescue. But nothing. No one comes. By day 5, he starts to accept his situation and begins looking for resources. And look at this. By day 10, he's actually finished building a little wooden tent for shelter. It's incredible. Fast forward to day 20, and he's got a whole routine down. Fishing, foraging. He's kind of resigned himself to the idea that this is his life now.
And you have to understand, this tent, it was so much more than just a shelter from the rain. It was a symbol of everything he'd been through. His effort, his resilience. It was his last little piece of hope in a world that had taken literally everything else. It was his proof that, hey, I can still build something for myself.
But then, just when he's found this tiny bit of stability, this foothold, the story takes a really devastating turn. He's about to face a moment where even that last shred of hope gets completely ripped away. Just picture it. He's out foraging for food, probably feeling okay about things, and then he comes back. And he sees it, his tent, his home, the one thing he built with his own 2 hands is just engulfed in flames, burning to the ground. And in that moment, it wasn't just his shelter he lost. It felt like he lost everything all over again. He's just standing there, watching all his hard work, his sense of security, his last reason to keep going, turn into nothing but ash and smoke right in front of him.
He just collapses. He's completely broken and he screams at the sky. He feels so betrayed. He tried so hard. He put in all the work, and now even that was just cruelly ripped away. This is absolute rock bottom.
So he cries himself to sleep right there in the ruins of his tent. But what happens next is what changes everything. The whole story pivots right here from this lowest possible point of despair to a moment of just unbelievable revelation.
So the next morning he wakes up, he opens his eyes, and there it is. A huge ship anchored right off the shore. The one thing he had completely given up all hope of ever seeing again. It was just there, waiting for him. Rescue had finally arrived.
So he's overjoyed, right? He runs to the ship, finds the captain, and he has to ask, how? How did you know I was here? After all this time on this remote island, how on earth did they find him? He never sent any kind of signal.
And this is the punchline. This is the whole point of the story. The captain just looks at him and says, "We saw your smoke signal." The fire, the very thing he thought was his ultimate destruction, his final punishment, that was the signal that saved his life.
Wow. Okay, so what does this all mean for us, right? That's the real question. How do we take this amazing story and actually apply it when our own tents catch on fire?
It really all comes back to that core idea we started with. A setback often isn't the dead end it feels like. It's more of a redirection. That fire that burns down your current plan, it might be the exact thing you needed to clear the path for something way, way better.
And I think this really breaks it down perfectly. Look, problems are going to happen. That's just part of life. You can't avoid it. But the art of life, that's about learning to look inside those problems to find the hidden opportunity, to find that unexpected hope, to see the smoke signal.
So let's call it the burning tent. It's that moment in your life that just feels like an absolute catastrophe, you know? A lost job, a failed project, a plan that goes up in smoke. But then when you look back, you realize that was the exact signal you needed. It was guiding you to your rescue, to your next big thing. So, if your year has already hit a snag, if one of your plans has already kind of gone up in flames, don't despair. Seriously. Just take a second and look at the smoke. That obstacle, that thing that feels like a failure, it might just be the signal you never even knew you were waiting for.
And there's this great analogy that I love. Think about it like this. The director gives the hardest roles to his best actors. If life is a movie, a great director isn't going to give the toughest, most complicated scenes to just anybody. No, they save those for their best actors. So if you're facing a really hard part right now, maybe it's because the director of it all knows you have what it takes to nail it.
So, what's the big takeaway here? It's actually beautifully simple. Be patient, be grateful, and move forward. When your tent burns down, try to be patient enough to see what's coming next. Try to be grateful for the signal, even when it stings. And, most important of all, just keep moving forward. Because you never know, your rescue might be just over the horizon.